Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine and I play the bass. In my last How to Teach Yourself bass guitar video, I actually got a lot of comments from people saying that they were struggling trying to find their groove when trying to learn how to slap and pop on the bass guitar. When I first started learning the bass, I did find that slapping and popping was a lot harder to pick up than finger plucking. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I taught myself how to slap and pop on the bass and the journey that I took to progress from this to this. Also bear in mind this isn't a technique-based tutorial per se, but rather it outlines the general steps that I took to teach myself this particular technique. It can actually be applied to any technique that you want to learn, for example tapping, double thumbing, etc. And it can also be applied to other instruments too. But if you're looking for a more in-depth tutorial on how exactly to place your fingers and move your hands when slapping and popping the bass guitar, I'll be linking some of the resources that I used in the description box below. So without further ado, let's get started. Step 0. Learn the basics. So unfortunately, before you can even start learning how to slap and pop, it's really important to know the fundamentals on how to play the bass, because if you don't have that down, your progress is probably going to be hindered and your learning curve is probably not going to be as smooth. So if you've just got your first bass guitar and you're thinking, the first thing I'm going to learn is how to slap and pop, you might want to think again. Essentially, you need to learn how to walk before you can run. So what constitutes the complete basics? In my opinion, you have to already be able to know how to play a few simple songs using the finger plucking method, which is easier to learn and more widely used. And secondly, you have to be able to learn songs and exercises, ideally by ear. You can also watch my video on how I progressed as a self-taught bassist over here, and hopefully that helps you kickstart your journey. Step 1. Observe and copy. In my opinion, the best way to learn when you don't have a teacher to teach you is to learn from the people on the internet. This means watching other people slap and pop bass over and over again and seeing if you can break down their movements and essentially imitate what they're doing. This can be from watching free tutorials on how to slap and pop bass on YouTube, or it can be from slowing down the covers of your favorite songs. For tutorials, bear in mind that every tutorial is going to teach slapping and popping a little bit different. So initially, it might get a little bit confusing. Just make sure you watch them to get a general idea and to find a technique and movement or style that you feel comfortable doing. For example, there are people who teach or who play with a more horizontal thumb position. And there are also people who play or teach with a more vertical thumb position. There's no one particular method that is right or wrong. It's up to you to figure out which style you feel most comfortable playing with. When it comes to covers, make sure you slow the covers way down so you can see the slapping and popping motion in slow-mo, so you can really pay attention to the general movements that they're making. Then feel free to imitate what you're seeing in order to start to get the gist of the hand motions required to slap and pop. I also actually used to film myself when I was learning how to slap and pop right at the very beginning to see if my technique looked like what I was trying to copy from YouTube. Step 2. Exercise. This is a step where you actually start to hone in your technique. In my opinion, it's probably the most boring, but it's an absolute must if you want to start to learn how to slap and pop. When I first started learning, I actually just wanted to skip this step and go straight to learning songs, because let's be honest, songs are so much more fun. I remember I so wanted to be able to play Flea's bass line in Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but even that was too difficult for my level at that time. This is why exercises are so important. They almost act like a stepping stone in order to help you take that bigger step when you finally feel comfortable and ready to play an actual song. Obviously, when it comes to exercises, you want to start with something really easy. Then you probably want to progress to something slightly more difficult. And also, because I found the slap part way more complicated to learn than the pop part, I actually started by separating the two parts and learning how to slap before incorporating the pop into my playing. Also, a very, very important part of the step is actually playing with a drum track. You have to play in time as a bassist because you're one of the pillars of the rhythm section. So when you first start playing with the drum track, obviously start slow, maybe around 60 or 70 BPM, then increase the speed to maybe 80, 90, 100, etc. until you can play the exercise up to speed. Step 3. Time, practice, and patience. So at this point, you kind of understand the slap and pop mechanics and you found some exercises. Now it's just a matter of time and practice. Unfortunately, this is the point where a lot of people give up. It's going to feel like sometimes you're not making any progress, but trust the process and know that you're making progress even if it's the slightest bit every day. At this stage, it's really important to practice the technique as often as possible. If you only play once every 2 or 3 weeks, it's no surprise you're not going to be able to pick it up in a short period of time. That being said, here are some of the common mistakes that I encountered when I first started playing. The thumb hitting too many strings. The pop not sounding poppy enough.
Yes. Now you have to pop the string.
The thumb not hitting the correct string. When you're practicing, make sure to watch out for these things and correct them early. Make sure you play your exercises cleanly, otherwise you're just going to end up building bad habits on top of bad habits, and it's going to hurt your progress later on. Step 4. Playing songs. At this point, you should be more comfortable in slapping and popping simple things. And now it's time to apply your newly learned technique. In my opinion, this is when slapping and popping becomes proper fun, because you finally feel like you can really jam with your favorite artists and your favorite songs. Again, like with exercises, pick simple and easy songs to start off with first. The first song that I wanted to learn was Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that's actually a song that I would recommend as being a good beginner slap and pop bass song. Other easy songs to jam to include Dot Necessities by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Panic Station by Muse, and Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. Then when you feel like playing the main riff becomes easy, feel free to adapt it and come up with your own fills using slapping and popping. After that, the obvious next step is to learn harder and harder songs. But other than that, you can also exercise your creativity by learning how to spice up bass riffs of songs that don't actually use slap and pop. So technically, you can inject slapping and popping into any song that you want. Step 5. Keep slapping the bass. As I touched on my previous video, learning the bass is a lifelong process. For example, right now, I'm still trying to get better at learning how to double slap, and by applying the steps that I outlined previously, my progress has gone something like this. It's taken me years to get a little bit better at double slapping. The honest truth is, I haven't been playing as often as I should be. Life happens, we get it. But also be realistic with yourself. Don't expect progress to happen quickly and smoothly if you don't put the work in. Anyways, I hope this video has helped you somewhat in getting the gist of how to teach yourself how to slap and pop bass. Again, this can be applied to any technique on any instrument. Keep practicing, keep slapping, keep popping, keep playing the bass, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.